All I know is it broke. It frequently breaks. So
Well, let's fix it.
yeah, when in doubt, restart your VM. Hi YouTube. Zach or Morin, if you would, keep an eye on the YouTube and Discord and let me know if you see anything. But, hello. How is everyone doing? How's everyone's weekend?
Groovy.
For anyone doing CPTC, how's that going so far?
We're doing some prep work.
Y'all had a meeting the other night.
Yeah.
Cool, cool.
My headset wasn't working, so I
You know, gave us some walkthrough on stuff.
Say what, Trip?
You know, gave us a walkthrough on some web and testing stuff.
Nice. That's good. That'll be probably it'll be useful.
There will most certainly be at least one web server.
Ah. Okay. All right. Well, good luck with that. Hopefully, some of this helps or gives you resources to help train. But if not, oh well. Sorry. I'm pretty tired right now, so you guys are gonna have to show me how to break into these boxes. To start with, we're gonna go over briefly because I recognize most, if not all of you. I think Carlo, were you here last week? Okay, so we're gonna briefly go over what we went over last week, just to kind of recap, give people an idea, just in case you forgot. And then after that, we are going. Oh, David says hello. Hi, David. We are going to move on to privilege escalation, and then we're going to look at one, and if we do well enough, two boxes. One on Hack the Box. That's a retired box, so you guys might not be able to access that. I think, Ethan, did you figure out if CAP was available? CAP.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Not to the common user.
Okay, so we're gonna work through that. I don't know if Jason's gotten the Hack the Box stuff worked out. I'll ask him Friday. But you know, chances are we're not gonna have that in time to have you all work on it today. So you all can show me how to break into that box, and I can give you some pointers as we go through that. But yeah, so last week we covered recon and initial access. So can anyone tell me what reconnaissance is important, or the importance of reconnaissance and penetration testing?
Figure out how you're going to attack something.
Okay, figure out how you're going to attack something. So like, can you be a little more granular? What are we looking for? You know, it can be anything. Vulnerabilities, okay. But before vulnerabilities, what are we looking for? So what leads to vulnerabilities? Like what is vulnerable, right? And that might be what? Anyone? If we're looking at a website, right? We're going to poke around, see what's on there, right? We're going to look at resources. We're going to look at, hey, maybe there's an upload somewhere. Maybe they've got just default creds lying around. So we're poking around. We're trying to find things that might help us find vulnerabilities or find something to exploit so we can get the initial foothold, right? So that's more or less what recon is, like from a high level. And specifically, last week we were looking at this vulnerability box on TryHackMe. If TryHackMe is watching or watches this, please sponsor us. We would love that. So we were looking at this box, right? And what exactly? First of all, try not to look at the screen, but what tools did we use and what were we looking for on that box? Okay, what does Nmap do? For those, oh, TryHackMe. Oh, thank you, Ethan. What is Nmap? Scanning suite. Okay, port scanning. Why do we care about ports?
Let's see what's open,
What's open? What do you mean, what's open?
what services are running.
What services are running? And that goes back to what Blake had said. We're looking for vulnerable services, right? We're looking for things we can poke around with, or we're just looking at the host in general, like getting an idea of what's there, right? Because right now it's just like this thing on the internet. We have no idea what it is, right? Let's get information about it. And there's, if any of you have heard of this, OSCP, basically one of the core principles is enumerate, 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 and then enumerate some more. So like find out as much information as you can, and keep looking and poking at something, because that helps you get further and do more. So we used Nmap. What did we find with Nmap? A web server? What port was that on?
3,000 something, I think.
Yeah, it's 3333. Or 3,333, right? Close enough.
Not normally where you find a web server.
Right. So it was a little odd. What was on that? Here, actually, we can just navigate to that website.
It's like a university or something.
Yeah, it was like a university. So they're hosting some kind of. Here it is. Go over here. You said 3,333, right? Let's see if this works. I don't think that's gonna work, actually.
Did you start the machine?
I did, yeah. Oh, spoiler alert. This is one of the boxes we're going to be working on. So if you want to, don't Google. Or Google it if you want. Enumerate, whatever. Hello. What? Hey. So the box was 10. What was it? 95.124. And 3003. There we go. So it's Voln University, right? And we had found this website after doing Nmap to find like services. Now what? What did we do with that? Goes back to enumeration, right? What tool did we use to enumerate the website, and why did we do that? GoBuster or Dirbuster, right? And I did figure out why it was broken, so we can showcase that if you'd like, Carlo. Would you like us to go through that real quick? Okay, so we used GoBuster, right? And that did what for us? What does GoBuster do?
Hey, Charlie, I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So I don't remember which one is. So GoBuster and Dirbuster, which one is the older one? And I guess Dirbuster is the older one. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think it's a GUI version of Dirb.
Dirbuster has a GUI.
Dirbuster is the GUI version of Dirb, as far as if I remember correctly. And then like someone went and made like a Go version that does like multiple threads and is a lot better. So.
But all it really does is speed it up, right? Does it have
for
like
the most
additional
part.
capability?
Yeah. So if you do GoBuster, you can fuzz websites. You can do subdomain listing or subdomain enumeration. I don't know if Dirbuster can do that,
I mean,
but
is
it could.
doing that from a word list though?
It does, yeah.
I mean, you could still pass a word list too. I feel like GoBuster has some weird thing that I messed up that, and maybe that's it, that it didn't enumerate stuff quite like I wanted it to, and GoBuster did when I used it last.
This is really small, isn't it? Can you guys read that? Ethan, can you read that in the back?
I cannot at all, but I'm also partially blind.
Here, let me blow that up for you. Why am I using Is that better?
Yeah, I can.
All right. So what we're doing here is what? What is one thing that we have to provide GoBuster to kind of enumerate this website? A word list, right? And I like to use this one, the medium one, and we give it the website. So that's 95.124 and 95.124.333. Oh. There you go. Let that run. So what are we doing here? It's kind of like pinging. You're going through that word list with these keywords, and you're kind of looking at the responses back from the website. So it's an active scan. What kind of an important distinction that a lot of certifications try to make is like active versus passive scanning. So passive scanning would be like going to Google and instead looking for these URLs through like a third party. So you're not, your IP address or your known indicators are not actively being or attacked or poking the target. But with this, the traffic's going to be going from you directly to them or the target, right? So that's active. The distinction is kind of important, but for now it doesn't really matter. But we're going through this, and we ended up finding internal, and then beyond internal, we found internal uploads. So that was kind of it for the enumeration we did. We found a couple of other open ports, but this is how we got a foothold, right? What did we do after we found we could upload a file? And we could talk about burp. Do you think that would be helpful? What we did with burp? Burp Suite. Does anyone remember?
You imported the certificate the browser.
We did do that. So we set up Burp Suite with the help of all of y'all. For those online who didn't hear, we did set up Burp Suite. But what did we use Burp Suite for? Right. So we tried to find what file extensions or what types of files we could upload, right? And we found that to be PHTML, which is like a Python, or sorry, excuse me, PHP HTML form or HTML document, right? What did we upload to get an initial foothold? Yeah, so reverse shell. So because we already know what this is, I'm not gonna do that. So I went ahead and made something called education.phtml. And right here, okay, yeah, it's streaming. So we made two modifications. We gave it our IP address within their network, the TryHackMe network, and we gave it a port. And this is important. Why? For a reverse shell, why do we have to give it our IP address or an IP address we have access to?
Okay. We can get access back into it without IP address.
Yeah, so we get a callback, right? So we actually have that target server communicating with us. So it actually, we can talk to it, right? So let's go ahead and upload this. We'll go to internal, right? browse, and home. We upload that. Now, what tool do we need or can we use to kind of listen for this communication from that server, right? What's one tool we can use? Netcat, right. So we set up a listener with Netcat, and I think I used 4445 for this. And then we go back to the website, and we actually navigate to our uploaded file. Well, you look at that. We've got a shell. So for those of you that stuck around a little past the meeting last week, you probably saw us fuddling around with a program called Find. So this is, well, that's where we're going to start today, and kind of the new material or the new stuff we're going to talk about. And yeah, so does anyone have any questions before we kind of move on to the next stuff? I'll take the awkward silence as a no. All right, so who are we on this box? We are www.tac-data, and that's not a normal user as far as things go. It's a service user, and that means we can't really do much on this box or this computer that we're connected to. So one thing that we're going to touch on today is privilege escalation. So how do we go about becoming a different user who can do things, basically? So privileges on Linux, they're not incredibly complicated, but basically it boils down to groups and user privileges. So certain users and certain group members are able to access certain files on this computer. Service users typically don't have access to much. Normal users have access to a little more, and then you get root users who have access to basically everything on the system. So they can't, well, yeah, everything on the system. So you can go about changing passwords of just arbitrary users. You can set up services. You can modify, well, you can connect to ports under like 1024. You can do all kinds of crap. We want that because this kind of follows the same archetype as a CTF, where you're looking for a flag, and one of those flags happens to be in the root home directory, which we don't have access to as www.data. But yeah, so they don't even have. Okay, so we see one user home directory is Bill. So maybe we can print out Bill's flag. Yeah, we can. So we have access to Bill's flag right there. But if we were to go to root, we can't even open it because we don't have permission to do so. So before I go into that, there's the MITRE attack framework. It talks about different ways. You know, it doesn't matter. MITRE attack framework goes into privilege escalation a little bit. So they have a section on that tactic, if you will. And it outlines several different means of escalating privileges. But usually you're either looking for user credentials, you're cracking passwords, you're dumping hashes, or you're looking for binaries that are misconfigured or systems that are misconfigured that you can manipulate to find a way to escalate your privilege. So in this case, we use a program called Find, which lets us basically look through files on the entirety of the system or in certain directories of the system to look for specific parameters within binaries. So if you were to consider like a library of books, right, and you're looking for a specific book that is on Java, you might give it like a field or a text. You might, man, that's a bad analogy. You might go to a computer and look for a specific bookshelf, and that might be your directory, and then you kind of narrow down your scope. So Find lets you specify parameters. There are several parameters. Just check out the man page. But we're looking specifically for something called the set UID. And this set UID lets you run a binary or a program as the user who created it. So, can anyone guess what user we want to act as on this system? Or might be good for acting, or as, to act as, rather. Bill? Maybe, but we already have access to everything Bill has done. Is there another user that might be useful? Root, right. So, if we were to go and do find slash, that gives it the directory we're looking in, right? So that would be like the entire file system, or yeah, the entire file system of this computer. Yeah, like C: on Windows. Perm. So this is going to tell us the permission of the file. It's kind of like your chmod 777, right? That octal, right? Those are the permissions of the file. But there's an additional bit that's included in that, or set of bits. We're looking for a 1 on the far side, and that's going to be like the set bit. It's called the set UID. So we do TAC 4000, and that indicates it's a set UID based our permission, and then we want to get rid of all the crappy output that doesn't matter. So we just pipe that to dev null. Can anyone tell me what dev null is? Anyone familiar with that? Yeah, so it's a way for those online. Dev null is, Tripp said, a sink. So it's a kind of it's a black hole that you can just pipe stuff you don't really care about. We don't care about the errors. So the 2 right there is a named, well, it's a pipe that's refers to like standard error. So we're piping standard error to dev null. That's what we're doing with the 2, or redirecting, really. We're not piping it. We're redirecting standard error to dev null. So that gets rid of all errors that we encounter. Because if we were to run this normally, you'll see we get a bunch of errors, right? And that's not super clean. So, in fact, that kind of crashed our shell. So we're going to have to, there we go. So, we'll run that again. No. And you'll see, okay, no more errors. So, I'm going to introduce you to one website that's super useful when you're looking at set UIDs. You're looking for privilege escalation. It's called GTFO bins. And this is, well, it says right there, it's a curated list of Unix binaries that can be used to bypass local security restrictions in misconfigured systems. So basically, this is a list of standard Unix binaries that we can use to potentially escalate our privileges. So you can see there's quite a few binaries that had the set UID. What we can do is I know which one it is, but we're interested in system CTL, right? So if we look at this, we've got the set UID right here, and it was created by root. I happen to know that we can do something cool with this. So we have a set UID right here. Can anyone tell me what system CTL is? What's that used for? Don't be afraid to man page this or tack help this and tell me. Does anyone know? Don't be afraid to answer. It doesn't. I'm not going to be upset if you don't know.
What's the difference between system call and system D?
I think system CTL sits on top of system D. No, is it the other way?
It says it controls the state of system D.
Okay, so it controls the state of system D. So it's a useful tool. What does system D do exactly? What is that responsible for on a Unix system?
It's an init system and much more.
Right.
Anything you could possibly imagine.
Okay, what are we using system?
It's just like a service manager.
Yeah, service manager. So does anyone know what a service or a daemon is on Linux or Unix systems? What are those? And what's the equivalence on a Windows system? Say what?
I said probably background processes.
Background processes, yeah. Okay, so there are services on Windows too. So these are things that run in the background, usually, and that sometimes they start when you turn on your computer. Sometimes they start when you do specific actions at certain times. All kinds of stuff. System CTL can help you manage those, like Zach had said. We can also create services. We can start services. We can end services. We can suspend services. We can do whatever we want with services. And it so happens that it has a set UID, and obviously it's made by root. But that means we can create a service of our own. And the cool thing about that is, and actually the other cool thing about that is, because it's run as root, that means, and because it's set, we can run it, we can create this service, and potentially it's going to be run as root itself. So that means that, actually, do you guys know what that means? What can we do with that? Yeah.
I was gonna say create a script that makes yourself root and then just make it a service and then run service.
We could do that, yeah. We could also perhaps just set up a reverse shell that pings back to our host, right? And it'll be created by the root user, which means we now have a root shell, right? So I've gone ahead and done that, but you can you can Google it. Creating services is really, really, really easy. But I'll just go ahead and show you what I pulled from the internet. So what did I call this? I called it lservice.phtml. So I called it lservice. The description doesn't really matter. It's going to remain after the service is exited, and it just creates a bash shell over this port to this IP address, and it pipes it to cat, and there you go. So does anyone have any clue? Oh, that's tiny. Sorry. Does anyone have any clues as to why I named it PHTML?
gotta upload.
Yeah. The background behind this was I tried to open Vim, and we don't have a very good shell right now. So it crashed my shell before.
I did
So
the same thing, and you can't like get out of it, like it breaks.
yeah. So the easy way around that is just to upload it the same way and rename it, and then you just, well, I'll show you. So I went ahead and uploaded this. I'll do it again just to show you. Three. Browse, and then I called it. What did I call it? Oh, service.phtml. Submit it. Then if we go over to uploads, we can verify that it's there. You see it's there. So in our reverse shell, we can go to var www html uploads. Oh, sorry. Internal uploads, and we see it's there. All right, so we have access to this because we are www-data. We can modify whatever's in here. I'm just going to rename it to lservice.service. Oop. So we renamed it, and now we have to make systemctl know that it's here. So we use link, and we give it the path to this file. Oh, shoot. See, bad shell, so I can't. It takes a long time. Okay, we create a symlink for that, and then systemctl knows about it. We can start that service, but I'm missing one thing. What am I missing? Yep.
Don't you need root to start a service?
No, because this is a setuid
Oh, okay.
binary. But if I were to start this now, what are we missing?
Missing your listener.
We're missing our listener. So we create this connection out, but nothing's listening on the other side. So what we can do, set up our listener, run that, and you can see connection received on 10.10.95.124, which is our server. The server we're connected, well, that was our target. And now, if we run who am I, we are root. So we've got a root shell. And that means if we go over to root, we can get the flag. So that's that. All right. So before we move on to the next box, do you guys have any questions?
I thought the setuid bit was like a permission bit, like it could run setuid or it could run as creator if it were specified, like with a.
Yeah, you do it in the service thing. Like you could put a user.
Oh, okay.
In
Oh,
the,
you don't have to do that.
I mean, that's the way that's the way I don't know. That's what I saw. Is that you put the user as root in the service, and then that's who runs the command for the service, like the command where you do the reverse shell.
Okay. So it has a. Let's see.
I don't know if Charlie did that now, but that's what I did when I did mine.
I did not do that.
It may have something somewhere to check if it's allowed to do set UID.
So whoever created the file would set the bit on that binary. So the root user set the bit on that binary. Root could probably set it for, well, for any binary, but like I don't know if they can set it for binaries they don't own. I would assume that they can.
It's the owner, not the creator.
Yeah.
If you own the binary, you can set UID. Turn
Yeah.
on set UID.
Which means you're basically granting whoever the ability to run as you, which is dangerous as you can imagine. But I would imagine it's pretty useful if you're doing system administration. But yeah.
There's another one called like set cap or set in cap.
Yeah.
You
So
can do it in a finer grain.
yeah, there's like a whole different layer to file permissions that gets pretty complicated pretty quickly. I'd have to brush up on that, but yeah, there's like cap. I don't know. It's worth looking up. I'll try to find it after this. But yeah, any other questions?
The other one, syscuttle versus system cuttle.
Yeah.
System cuttle controls system D.
Oh,
Syscuttle
yeah.
controls kernel configuration.
Yeah, so system D sits below system cuddle, right? So it kind of, system cuddle manages system D in that sense. So yeah.
Syscuttle being kernel configurations is in like the literal
And like
Linux kernel.
init.rc, the real old school
Okay.
Linux style.
Yeah, system code, you're going to be messing with services and that type of stuff usually. Like, so if you need to restart a service, you're going to use system code. Or start or stop, or
If you need to turn on IP forwarding in the kernel, you use syscuttle.
All right, so
Because we're bad at naming things.
yeah. They're like, oh, it sounds close enough, right? So
sounds different to me.
yeah, it's different enough, right?
3 letters different. They won't get that confused.
Well, you can tell it's older because there's fewer characters, right? And they liked making things, the program smaller, right?
Tab completion hasn't been around forever, man.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to Hack the Box. Unfortunately, this is a retired box, so you won't have access to it, but you will through me tonight, and only tonight, and I guess in the recordings as well. So if you want access to this, you can get VIP. Sorry, I just so happen to have it. So the box we're, oops. The box we're working on is called CAP. This shouldn't take too long. If it does, that's okay. There's another one that's really buggy on TryHackMe. I won't spoil what the vulnerability is, but it's very unstable and causes crashes. So we're going to do this one first because this will more likely work. So you can see that the IP address of the host we're looking at is 10.10.10.245. So you all are in charge. What do we do? Nmap. Okay. Do we know if the host is up though?
Okay,
Ping. Okay.
Connected to the VPN.
Okay, it's up. Now what?
now I'm now.
Okay, just normal InMap, just
I
that?
don't remember the flags.
Okay,
There was like SV, which is service.
so we're looking for services, right? What else? All the ports.
Oh, yeah. We're scanning them all. You never know what
Oh, that's gonna take a while, but okay, we can do all the ports.
This isn't real life. We don't care how noisy it is.
All right, so SV, all the ports. What else? Do we want anything else?
Set the timing to 4.
Time to 4.
Scripts.
We want scripts. Okay. Actually, how do we do scripts?
If you want to just do their regular scripts, you can do TAC-SC.
Okay.
If you want to specify your own specific scripts, you can do TAC-TAC scripts and then give it to that.
So for those online, there's two different ways that we know of off the top of our head of checking for different scripts. One is to specify specific scripts. I think they're called NSEs, in-map script engine scripts. It's like community made. But anyway, or we can use TAC-SC, which is like default scripts. So TAC-SC. Do we want to do anything else? No? Okay. If I wanted to output like all the scan to something, how would we do that? Pipe would, yeah, that would work. Well, redirecting would work. But what's the difference between redirect and piping? What character is redirecting? First of all, what is this?
I don't know, like greater than. Yeah.
Greater than?
It's one of those math symbols.
It's like angle bracket, right?
Yeah, but like, okay, so I was
What?
looking at, like, the actual- I think
Waka. Okay.
Greater than, yeah, but
What's the
I was
other
looking at
way?
The actual keyboard,
Back
like
walk.
the table.
Back
they-
Waka. Okay.
They officially
I
call it greater
legitimately
than.
like
Nobody
that's
says
funny.
that.
Okay. So Waka. We learned something new today. This is called a Waka. This is
See,
called
I
a
only
back
do that
walk.
because I've heard Dr. Spring also.
That's an official term.
It is an official term now. So we can redirect it. What's the pipe character? What is this?
Goes straight line up and down.
Okay, that's the pipe, right? So, what use cases? Where do we want to use Waka, and where do we want to use pipe?
Pipe is more useful for if you're trying to type it into another, like, command or program.
Okay, so like if we're maybe looking at a specific file or like set of files and we're printing it out and we want to look for a specific field, we might do like cat file name, pipe it into grep, and then look for like specific fields or something like that. Where would we want to use redirecting? Why do they call it redirecting? You know, it really doesn't matter. Redirecting, you redirect like standard output. It like by default, I think it's 1 is standard output. So there's 3 default paths that I can think of, and then you start getting into weird Unix stuff. 0 is standard input. That's like your keyboard and maybe mouse clicks. 1 is like standard output. That's what's getting spit out at you on the console. And then 2, does anyone remember what 2 is? I talked about this.
Errors.
What? Errors, right, standard error. So when we do this, we're taking the standard output, what would be spit out at us on the console, and we're piping it in, or redirecting it into something. In this case, we could do like text.txt or something like that. But if there's a built-in thing called TAC-O, which lets us do output. TAC-O, capital A, does like 3 different types. It does greppable, it does a normal nmap, and then it does an XML version. So you can take those things and you can do fancy things with them. But we don't really need that for now.
If you're actually trying to like parse your information with something that's not just looking at it visually, it can be nice to use text that way.
Yeah. So what Ethan said is if you're actually doing something with the nmaps past like looking at the scans, or if you want to like pass it to a third-party program that maybe handles nmap scans or scans, it can be useful to have TAC OA. Additionally, for record keeping, it's usually a good idea to hold on to your nmap scans, because if you're doing a long-term thing, or if you want to come back to this machine, you can cut back on a lot of time if you already have the scan there. You can just refer back to that. Also, naming the file in a specific way. I'm just filling dead air right now. Naming the file in a specific way is also very important for record keeping. So if you're actually reporting something, having the IP address in the name, having the time you scanned it, having the type of scan you had, possibly having the person who's scanning it in the name of it. All of those things are kind of useful to have there, so you can just have an idea of what's going on in the system, because services might go down. You might have someone closing something. The host might go down. It's all about record keeping and just keeping things organized. And having a format for that is also useful, like a set format, if you've got multiple people working on it.
So, while we're waiting on this,
Yeah.
2 quick things. With regard to pipes and redirecting output and stuff like that, T is super useful.
Yeah, so for those online, what Dr. Springall just mentioned was, there's piping and redirecting, but there's also a program called T, which, if I'm not mistaken, takes standard output, redirects it, but also puts it to, you can basically create separate pathways for the data, so you can do more than just one redirect. You can have it redirected to a file, standard out.
You can get real complicated with it.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's take standard out, write it to this file, and show it to me.
Yeah, so most of the time, I'm sorry for repeating what you're saying. Most of the time, yeah, you're printing out the standard out, but you're also outputting to a file. I think there is a way to do that without T, but it gets really gross really quickly.
Well, since you can stick it on the end of any command,
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what flags you have to remember for whether it's nmap or grep or whatever it is, or find, because you just T it to a file, and now you've got it. The other thing is what you're saying about naming, way more important than you.
Yeah. As you get into like real world pen testing, or just real world applications of security, documentation and record keeping is paramount. I mean, it makes your life easier. It might be a little more work, like as you're doing it might take up some time, but in the long run, when you're actually taking everything you've done and putting it into a report, and kind of, or even coming back to a project, documentation is so important.
2 or 3 weeks later, you're not going to remember temp 1, temp 2, temp misspelled.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here we go. So we got a bunch of stuff here, but what's really important is right here. These are our open services, or open ports rather. So can anyone tell me what ports are open? Why did we run this in-map scan?
See how we access the machine.
Okay.
We've already gone.
Yeah. So to access this, to get an idea of what our target is actually doing, or what this host is actually doing, right? So what 3 services are running on this host? What?
HTTP, SSH, and FTP.
Yeah, so we got FTP, SSH, and HTTP. So we've got something running on port 21. That's our FTP server. We've got an SSH server running, and we have a website running on, I can never remember how to pronounce this. It's either Gunicorn, G-Unicorn, or whatever. I'm going to call it Gunicorn. Say what?
Pronounce it however you want.
Yeah, we got Gunicorn running on port 80. So, okay, what now?
What was the rest of that stuff at the bottom? Was it just all script stuff from the HTTP?
So, yeah, it's like HTML crap. We've got SSL certs and
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's the one downside sometimes when you run the script. You get some garbage stuff, which it's not necessarily garbage, but
no. If I were better at this, I would know exactly what this stuff is, and why it's important. But I'm still, yeah. So we've got a fingerprint.
Yeah, so it's HTML headers and just HTML text of the actual website. Don't know what RTS, but I assume that's making a different request. And
I think that's the literal. That's the same stuff as what was printed out in the.
that's just a raw instead of a pretty
oh, it's just a hex escape, whatever.
problem. It kind of looked like that's what it was.
Oh,
No?
let's see, port 80. Yeah, this
Well,
might.
it be some sort of
This might be the landing page for the website. So if we curled this, we might see that it's the same.
I mean, it definitely has HTTP headers in it.
Oh, let's try again. Check your spelling and try again. Anyway, it's not super important for this. When we get there, we'll get there. But for now, we have these 3 open ports. What do you all want to do?
Let's browse the website.
Go to the website. Okay, good choice. What port was it? Do we need the port? 80? Do we even need to specify port?
Not if it's 80.
All right. Looks like we landed on a security dashboard. Uh-oh. All right. What should we do here? Should we just poke around? Something's happening.
What?
Something's happening. Attention, the control system has been inactive for 5 minutes.
You just have to click something. I've seen
Jeez.
that before. It's like after DP.
I thought it was a drag.
Yeah, I thought it was like something was about to explode.
I know you did. You set off the bomb.
All right, let's poke around.
This is the lab. It's a bomb.
So that's why I don't want to access.
Yeah, you have to hack it.
The doors are locked.
Turn it off.
Yeah, the door's locked at 6.
So it looks like we've got security events listed here over the last 24 hours. We've got failed login attempts. That could be interesting. Port scans. And port scans with the number of unique IP addresses that have scanned or potentially have scanned this website over the last 24 hours. Additionally, we're Nathan. Yeah. So it looks like we are Nathan right now. That's the user we're listed under. We can access settings, messages, and we can log out. Additionally, we can go to security snapshots. So this is a 5-second PCAP plus analysis. So does anyone know what a PCAP is?
Packet capture.
Packet capture, right. So that could be interesting. We could get PCAPs from the system, potentially. Let's see what's there. I think we can get PCAPs from this. Yeah, so we can download PCAPs at certain times. There's IP config, which right now we know what host we're connected to, so that's not super useful. But you can see that the URL just has /IP, which could be interesting. And then we have network status, which is a netstat output right here. So we can look at the as well as another. Yeah. So we can look at the active connections on the host. We can look at. It looks like I forget the name of the program. It's escaping me right now. But we can look at network connections basically. And let's see what messages is.
Can you make that any bigger? Probably not.
Yes, I can. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
So messages does nothing. Settings does nothing. So what should we do? I know you know. What's up?
Is it like the settings and all that? Is that like because it's really just nothing, or because we can't access it?
It could be either. Chances are it's just that it doesn't. The functionality is not actually there.
I think it's just lazy programming by the people who built the machine.
Yeah, probably that. Does anyone have any ideas? I know the first thing I did.
If I was actually, well, I would, if I was actually trying to break into the machine, I would start a Durbuster in the background, let that run for 30, 45 minutes, or however long it takes,
Let's go ahead and do that.
and then start doing other stuff.
So
That's another thing that you'll learn as you do more things, that sometimes scans take time, and start those at the beginning and let them run in the background where you poke around and find out other information. It's usually a good thing. And then the scans come back and tell you all you need to know. But
okay. Oh, yeah, we didn't need it. Okay, so that's going. I know the first thing that I did was I was kind of curious seeing these URLs if maybe it's just running something. So I tried ls just to see if I could run commands by passing that. But that doesn't really make sense. So and just to let you know, it doesn't work. One major issue with that strategy, if we're running kind of active scans or scans that take up a lot of bandwidth or take up a lot of juice from the host, we run into issues like this where we basically DOS the server and we can't do anything. So most of the time, yeah, you should be good to run scans, but there are considerations to be had there. Like the fact that this host might just have died. Okay. Killed it, Ethan.
I killed it, I'm sorry.
Okay, while we wait for this, any other ideas? We had IP config, we had netstat, we had awaited download PCAPs, 5-second PCAPs, I think. We had kind of a chart with just general statistics about stuff on the network, so like security stuff on the network. And we had 2 other open ports available. Okay, let's back up. What should we do?
I think the PCAP is like running a command straight from the website. Like we could look at that.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see about it. All right, so it looks like slash data, and let's zoom out a little bit here. So this was the, I guess, the most recent, maybe. So maybe we can change this. Okay, so it looks like we can look at different PCAPs. Oh, to an extent. Looks like if we do the incorrect, or like a non-valid PCAP, it takes us back to the landing page. So this PCAP 1 doesn't have anything in it, at least on the surface, right? What about 2? And 3 didn't. Okay. You said maybe checking download to see if it runs something? Okay. It looks like it just downloads it. Any ideas?
Does the 1 correspond to the, what is the, like,
So
actual request look like?
1.pcap. So it refers to the name of the PCAP.
Yeah.
So if we go here, this is kind of a gotcha. I'll tell you that. What number do you start with as a programmer? 0. Maybe there's a 0th PCAP. Oh, there is. Okay. This one has data too. Should we download that?
Sure.
Okay. Nah, it's nothing. Alright, let's go ahead and just open it with, what's Wireshark? Let's find out. Oh, it looks like Wireshark can parse PCAPs. Okay. Now what?
I mean, see if you see anything interesting. I mean, are you looking at connections to that box, right?
Yeah, this is this host's network traffic.
Yeah, so see if any connections are made to the box.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this. We had 3 ports on this host, right? We had SSH, FTP, and HTTP. One of those is encrypted as an encrypted protocol. Which one? SSH, right? Okay, we see HTTP traffic and we also see FTP traffic. So have any of you all ever used an FTP client?
I was gonna say, I mean, if there are a bunch of FTP packets, you can just inspect them and see if there's any logging credentials.
Right. So the first thing you do with an FTP client when connecting to a server is you provide a username and a password, unless you use anonymous login. So we're going to go ahead and look at that. So we see Nathan, that user we were logging into. See, here we go. This is what it looks like. Oh, it's tiny. Does anyone know how to zoom in on a Control plus? All right. We see user Nathan. This is what an FTP login looks like. So you specify
OVOA?
what?
What is the OVOA?
OVOA. Where's that?
Afterwards, the last two.
Oh, that's probably like the checksum for this. But you can actually you can go in here.
Like part of this
Highlight.
data stuff.
Oh, /r/n. Whoops. So what is /r/n? Like if you were to go into like a terminal, or, okay, it's a bad.
Python, you can say Python, like print.
Yeah, print, right? So if you're printing out to the console with Python, usually I think Python defaults to /n to end it with print, like the print function. What that looks like in the back is, ignore that R. It just would look like Nathan /n. Within Windows and some command terminals apparently, this is a return carriage and a new line. So like when you press enter, that's what that maps to, and it kind of carries over to the next line.
Baked into the protocol.
It's baked into the protocol, Trip says. And I believe him. So that's what that looks like. But is that all that interested? Did we already know who the user was? Maybe. Let's keep looking. Okay, so here's a response. The user with code 331. Oh, what does that look like? A password. Let's copy that. Oh, if I can copy this.
You don't want Python?
No. All right. We knew from the nmap scan, right? They have an FTP server, an SSH server, and an HTTP server. We now have what we suspect to be a password for the user, Nathan. What can we do with this information? What? Login is Nathan. How do we do that?
Because here's a question, I don't know if this is, but you said earlier, like, the FTP had a username and password, like with SSH had that too, or no?
Potentially. So that goes into the idea of password reuse. That's a very good question. Let's see if this works. So it's 10.10.245 Nathan, the password, and we see we logged in. Dir, and there's our user.txt. And if we do, what is it? Current working directory, pwd. Yeah, so we're in Nathan's directory here. So you can see on the bottom /home/Nathan is where we are. and we have user.txt. I can't remember the download or print. So
I think you could just do get to download the file.
get user.txt. Okay.
No, that should be in whatever your directory is. It is a little weird if you're ever using FTP, or at least in my experience with FTP, maybe I just don't know how to use it right, that you have to think about your current directory that you FTP from. So like if you're pushing things to an FTP, like where you're actually, you have to think about all of your pathing and that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to go wherever you want.
So here is our user.txt, but that is true. So that goes back to your question, right? Does SSH work? So if we wanted to SSH onto this box as Nathan, how can we do that? It's like what would we type into the terminal to SSH?
SSH Nathan at host.
245, right? Oh, whoops. Thank you. Hey, look at that. All right. The password did work. So that was a really good idea. Now what? We've got an SSH connection with this box as a legitimate user. And that means we can do tab completion, which is the best. So what do we do now? Who are we? Well, we logged in as Nathan, so obviously we're Nathan. But what do we want to do? Is there anything we want to do? What?
The same thing we did on the last one. Let's see if we can run anything with privilege.
Okay, so Ethan said let's try to do the same thing as we did last time. What does that mean? What do you mean?
Let's see what we have the ability to run.
Okay, what do we have the ability to run?
Can we run something weird that we should be able to run?
Okay.
That we might be able to prevent.
So any misconfigurations? Okay. We can do that with this command, right? The find command. What's missing here? 4,000. Oops. Right. Okay. So we have a lot. You can kind of ignore the snap stuff. So we've got umount, new grp, pk exec, mount, gpass wd, pass wd, sudo app. Anything popping out to you?
Wait, does that mean this is a root user? If you have access to sudo
Yeah, could you just do sudo su?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think sudo has to
Nope.
generally always see it with set, right? Because it has to sort of run as elevated privileges to enforce the elevated privilege stuff.
Yeah, we're just in Nathan's group here. What's a website we could check to see if maybe some of these have known exploits? Let's see what PK exec is.
Policy.
PK exec allows an authorized user to execute program as another user.
Yeah,
So
that seems. 'Cause, 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 'cause
Maybe. Maybe.
Looks like you need pseudo permissions for it.
Yeah. Any other ideas? I think this actually goes back to what Dr. Springall was talking about earlier. Git cap.
Is there anything below the snap?
Anything below the snap?
Uh,
Let me see.
If you're good, I was watching the
Okay. So let's go over here. So let's see. Yeah. So CAP stands for capabilities. So files may be given specific capabilities. So it kind of goes back to what actually it does go back to what Dr. Springall was referring to before. So file capabilities versus set UIDs. So what we're doing here with the program called getCap is we're checking the file capabilities of, well, binaries on here, see what we can do. So what we run is getCap TAC-R. GitCap TAC-R is recursive, and then we give it a directory we want to run this on. So let's see if we can find anything additional. Go all the way down. But I'm going to go ahead and do this again. There's a bunch of stuff I don't really care about. All right. Do we see anything new? I see something very interesting. So these are different fields within this, right? So set UID is pretty similar to what we looked for on the last machine. So this is a good thing to look for. I can't remember. There's other capabilities.
The admin at the bottom right, like the admin. Does that mean anything? Not really.
Oh, I'm not too familiar with this.
I was just curious if it said admin.
Yeah, good eye. I did not see that before. It could mean something. Let's look it up. Okay, well that wasn't as helpful as those open. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with all the capabilities, but I can tell you that this one's good, and the file it's associated with is even more interesting, or the binary it's associated with is more interesting. What is the binary it's associated with?
Basically saying you can run that in Python and it allow it.
Yeah.
Run that command.
Yeah. What is this binary though? Python. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone know any reverse Python shells? Or Python reverse shells rather?
Can you just use your set because you're not really doing a reverse shell here. You're just trying to spawn an additional shell onto it.
Sure. Yeah,
You don't
sure.
have to make a connection back to yourself. You just need to.
Yeah, sure. We could do that. How do we do that?
Just use the set UID and then do OS system.
Okay,
Then
so
bash or something.
user bin Python 3.8. I think it's TACM import OS.
I think set UID is in OS.
Crap. OS.system. Then bash.
You need to set your UID before you call that.
I think it is a module thing.
I don't think we do.
You don't have to set your UID before you
I
call
do
it?
not believe so.
Would it not call it as your current user then?
No. Well, maybe.
That's the module flag, I think.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah.
Let's see.
Try TechC.
TACC.
It seems like they would use the same argument to like jump those.
Yeah, it'd be taxi.
Didn't quite work.
Yeah, so you just spawned a.
regular
Technically, you did another shell as yourself.
Oh, well,
Which
it's not super
goes
helpful.
back to my question earlier, which I'm still currently looking at. Is I don't think it automatically runs as. There's the Wikipedia page is ambiguous, but I don't think it automatically runs as like it's set UID deep. I think it's more of a permission that it could if the binary wanted to, if there was some way to make it do that.
When in doubt, Google.
Yes, I think you just need a.
Yeah, so if you just do, if you, I actually looked it up on, are you on GTFO bins now? Yeah, at the bottom, capabilities,
Uh-huh.
that's what you need to,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
it's the bottom one.
Set UID.
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
run your set UID 0 before,
I was missing one thing.
you were close.
Darn. All right.
And then it will
Is
run
it
that
OS
as
set UID 0?
0, yeah.
All right. Why do we do 0? What? It is root. So if we were to go here, that's the user ID of root. So yeah, that is exactly right. Now it worked. Okay. Good catch. Thank you. So if we were to do who am I mean you can see it right there. You can see root at cap. So we are now the root user. And that means we can go over to root and .txt. So we got the flag. Ooh. All right. Do we want to do another one? Does anyone have any questions?
Which one would we do?
What?
Are we doing another hack box or another?
It's a TryHackMe. We can do another hack the box one.
I really just want to figure out what capabilities are. It's just.
Yeah, they're kind of like a gray box or a black box.
What?
Are they all carried out by libcap, or is that just an implementation of them?
I do not know.
Is libcap in the Unix kernel?
We're talking about capabilities. Like capabilities versus
Regular access control stuff.
Set UID is just, you get the permissions of the owner.
Yeah.
Set capabilities, you can set very specific, like, this binary can monitor network traffic and nothing else.
Okay.
As long as the person setting that
So
capability has that ability.
now when you do, so like when you have the set UID that you get the permissions, but you don't automatically assume the user of the owner, right?
I think you have to call, you have to make that C call,
Yeah.
and you have to call and turn on that from within the application, but you don't do.
But you have the permission to do that.
Set UID, the permission bit is the OS saying this binary is allowed to. Calling it from in the binary says, I'm going to do that.
So somewhere in system call, there's something that automatically flips to system if it sees the set UID that is.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know if it crashes or just errors, but the set UID call is not
Okay.
I can double check, but that's my understanding of how it works.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean it makes sense. I mean I just well tested it too.
Oh.
But, yeah, you have to explicitly call it within the binary in order to do it, but it's ambiguous between like gets the permissions of and then automatically runs as this user.
Think of it as allowed to and escalates to.
Okay. Yeah.
That's probably.
Okay.
What he said.
There's
Um,
another thing called capabilities.
Yeah. We can look more into that.
Yeah.
But, all right. So we can do one of two things. Well, I guess we could do three things, or whatever. We can go over what we've done and kind of figure out any holes, like if we have any questions, don't understand it. We can do a hack the box or start on one, or we can do a TryHackMe box called Blue. I'm gonna leave it up to you. What is blue?
It's the color.
Yeah.
It is a color.
Sounds ambiguous.
We could look at that one.
Is it like different than some of the other boxes, or is that just the name?
It is.
Everybody needs to know.
It's kind of a well-known, really, really bad thing.
Yeah. You can guess about the
So we're gonna go ahead. Yeah, we can look at blue. Before we go to blue, does anyone have any questions on like what we did, or like any ambiguities or anything like that? I guess not. We'll go over. So you all should be able to work on this one, because this one's, I think it's online on TryHackMe. It's available to like whoever. So, close all this stuff. It's a, oh yeah, that's a good question. So you can find this in Learn, Offensive Pen Testing, right here,
You can also just search blue.
or you could search blue, Getting Started, and then blue. So, apparently I hit it too hard.
I got the same.
Oh wow, really died.
If we quit at the exact same time.
Okay.
If you want to go, it's just /room/blue.
Chances are this is going to crash really hard just because of the exploit. So if something doesn't work, chances are you're not doing something incorrectly. Chances are it's the host crashing on you and it dying horribly. So if something doesn't work and you're going through the instructions, reboot the box and try again. This is a really bad bug, a really bad vulnerability. But yeah, so here's a spoiler. What's the first thing we're gonna do when we've got a host? We know the IP address and we want to know more about it. Or one thing we can do. Ping. Okay. So I pinged. It is up. Are you good? Okay. In Matt. I'm gonna do. Go. Does anyone have any guesses on what this vulnerability is? Without even seeing the open ports. No.
What's the name of it?
Blue?
Oh. It's like blue team.
Not blue team.
How about if I give you a different hint to it?
Sure.
Shadow brokers.
Yeah, so the hint was shadow brokers. Blue shadow brokers? Really bad bug? What year was this?
Like 6 years ago.
Yeah, so six. Oh, I guess, yeah, not everyone's going to know this one. So,
It's gonna take an eternity. I was trying to figure this out. Going to take an eternity for this in-map scan.
yeah, I would encourage you all to like Google what the shadow brokers are and look at some news reports on this. It was a pretty big deal. Still a pretty big deal.
Did they ever identify or claim to identify? Last I heard, they just fell off the face of the earth.
I don't think they ever figured out who was behind it, but I think it was suspected it was like North Korea or something.
It was who?
North Korea, I think, was the
Oh, they would never.
suspect. I don't know.
Just that first, like, partial dump was way more than their entire intel system had.
Oh, probably not North Korea then.
It was
What?
really,
Oh, okay. Got results. I see SMB2. That's bad. Okay.
Oh, are you thinking of WannaCry?
No, not
Oh,
one.
okay.
I don't know. I might have mixed something up. Okay, we got 135, 139, 445, 3389.
This wasn't like, was this going on like during the time like multiple like WikiLeaks stuff was going on?
This was like 2016, so it's after Snowden, long after WikiLeaks. 2015, 2016. It's actually an interesting story. It's worth going and Googling and reading some news articles from that time.
There were some like really weird, strangely worded emails or messages from the shadow. No, it was tweets. It was tweets. They were communicating through Twitter.
There's a good Darknet Diaries episode about all that.
Yeah, they talked to one guy from the NSA. It's not Rob. I don't remember his name, but he's like a well-known dude from the NSA, and he's like, "This is bad. This is really bad." Very cool. Very bad.
I highly suggest going back and just reading up some of the articles when it was happening.
Yeah.
You can't read the ones nowadays, but
Actually, Zach, would you post like a link to the Darknet Diaries thing in there? Because it summarizes it. He does. This guy Jack Resider. He goes and interviews people who were working on the case at the time. It's really good. It's a good podcast, worth listening to if you want to learn some stuff. But anyway, we see a bunch of open ports, and we also see this. All right. So this is important. And then we see a bunch of stuff. OS scans. I thought Aggressive did script scanning. But anyway, one important thing, I think it was SMB2 had a humongous vulnerability. Was it SMB v2 that the vulnerability was on, or is it? What is it? Was it? Was it V1? Okay. Well,
I could be wrong.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and Google this version of Windows that's running, and immediately we're prompted with a Rapid7 link reporting an exploit. So that's a huge red flag. And Eternal Blue. So I mean, you shouldn't really go off of just the name, but there's the name of our box. SMB Remote Windows Kernel. There is probably a walkthrough on this.
This very famous box.
Let's see. It is V1. You were right. Yeah. So, anonymous login. System instability and crashes. Blue screens of death. Or reboot. So we have a very, very unstable exploit here called Eternal Blue, and it's made by the Equation Group. Who's the Equation Group? I'll let you all look into the Equation Group at another time. But interesting stuff. So I think we found our vulnerability. So there's this tool called MSF Console or Metasploit. Has anyone ever used Metasploit in here before? You have? Okay. I know you have. I think Dr. Springall's used Metasploit, I hope. So you...
it's more fun to not use the tools that do everything.
Wow. So
I'm
Metasploit's
also broken, so don't take that as the way you should.
How long has Metasploit been out?
a long time. So Metasploit's made by Rapid7. Made and maintained by Rapid7. They have just like a bunch of exploits that they put into this. They have a bunch of shells, a bunch of payloads. It hooks up to a bunch of programs. You can run Nmap through this and automatically log things like IPs and services. It's a really, really powerful tool, but it's also signatured to hell. So take that for what it is. But one thing we can do with this is we can search for particular exploits, and it might be built into Metasploit. And I'm pretty sure Eternal Blue is built into Metasploit. So what you do is, after you run MSF console, you can do search, and then you can give it keywords to search for. And you can see here we have 5 different options. We have, let me zoom out. We have auxiliary, an auxiliary, man, I can't speak. Bunch of different modules, a couple of exploits. Usually auxiliary are scanners. There's a bunch of other stuff as well, but this would scan for the RCE, so it would see if it's a vulnerable host that you're looking at. Then you have exploits, so you have, different versions of Eternal Blue that have been imported into this. We're going to be using this one right here. So you can either, after you've searched, you can either just use the index on the left, so like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you know the name of the module that you want to use, you can type it in that way. These two. So that'll take you to, I don't know what you would call it, but basically you are now using that module. So if you were to try running it right now, it would fail. There's a couple of different reasons, but the first reason is you haven't actually given it the host that you're trying to run this on. So another reason is you might not have provided it with other options that are necessary for running it. And the third reason might be that it's Eternal Blue and it probably crashed your machine. So options. If you were to type in options, like so, it will list out several different fields that you can provide this module. So the first, right here, your name is our host. You go over, you can see it's blank, right? That means it's empty, there's nothing in there, there's no values associated with it. You can see it's a required field. So we need to provide it with something called our hosts. Can anyone guess what that might be? The description's right there if you need help. Yeah, so Metasploit is kind of hand-holdy, but in that sense, it's very nice. So that's the host you are running this on, our hosts. So if you wanted to set that field, you would do set the name of the field, our hosts, and then the IP address. And I don't quite remember what it was. It's like, let's go back. .121. Okay, so if we wanted to verify that it was set, we can go and do options again. We can see, hey, our host is set. You can provide it with multiples. I think it's comma delineated. So if you wanted to do multiple hosts, you could just add them with commas in between. It doesn't look like there any other fields that we need to fill in? There's also payloads. Oh. You can set different payloads. So this is basically, I think they're using like shellcode based off of whatever the host is supposed to be. So in this case, it would be like Windows 7 shellcode. I think it's Intel x86 if you're running on like a 32-bit processor or whatever. But you can specify different payloads based off of what you found on that. And I think they do obfuscate it natively, I think. If not, you can probably provide it with like a custom payload. Anyway, doesn't matter. We've done that. We are now going to try to run this. Chances are it's going to fail. But we run it, and we wait. We hope. Oh, it worked. Wait. And we've got a shell. So we've landed on a host. Now what? Who am I? We are system. We win. Why is system so awesome? First of all, what operating system are we running on? Windows. I think it's a Windows 7 box. Should be. On Windows 7, what's the equivalent to root? System. Basically, this lets us do whatever we want on this host. As far as I know, it doesn't have like any network privileges. So if like, well, that's poorly worded. We could change networking, but if we wanted to pivot onto a different box, that box is not going to recognize the user we are acting as. So we are not a networked user. We are a host user or computer user. So doesn't matter for this box, but we can basically do anything here. I don't think hash dump is going to work because we're not in the interpreter shell. I don't know where the hashes are natively. Where are the system or the Windows hashes? Sam?
Yeah, I forgot where.
So
System 32/config.
okay.
And there's something in there. I think it might be in the registry file.
It's just like say what?
Flag2.txt.
Where? Oh, yeah. So there's like several different flags here.
Oh, right.
So cat flag.
Straight to flag 2. Whatever flag 1 was.
What is it? What is? It's It's not. Is it not touch? It's. Yeah. You guys aren't Windows people. Man, I knew this. It's not Echo. It's cat on Windows.
Type.
Type. Yeah, type. Flag.txt. So there's one. SAM database, elevated access. What's another? I bet there's one in C. Flag 1, yeah. Access machine. Users. Oh, John. There's the other one. Okay. I don't know how many flags there are. Anyway, we can basically do anything on this box we want. We can access any document we want. We win, and that's why Eternal Blue's pretty powerful. Well, very powerful, or it was. I think it's been patched out. Hopefully, there's probably some legacy boxes that are all over the place that shouldn't be, but should be patched if they're still out there. But yeah, if you see something like this during CPTC, be very careful, especially if it's an important box, because you might crash that sucker. Be very careful. But yeah, that's about it. Hey, perfect timing too. 6:58. So, are there any questions before we let out? End scene. Oh. Okay.
Or just terminate roughly.
Yeah, like you did last time.
Oh, did I?
No, I don't.
I did.
One just thing, it was 2017, not
2017.
2016.
So it was 4 years. Well, I guess almost 5 years now. Go look up Eternal Blue. It's really, really interesting. Go look up Shadow Brokers and the Equation Group, because there's some